Okay. The presentations are sort of the culmination of a year's worth of work. So the research team has been working with teams of teachers, and the teachers are presenting today on their curriculum projects. We'll, I guess, introduce ourselves. It's not that big of a group, and then we'll get started. We'll start with the research team because I see we're all here. I'm Rachel Fendler, and I teach art education and at FSU. And Minky, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Minki Jain. I'm a research assistant for the Teaching Tallahassee project.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Scott Shields. I am in the Department of Art Ed at Florida State, working on this project with everybody.
John.
Everybody, I'm John Myers. I'm in the Social Studies Education Department at FSU.
Yeah, so this is a project that started with sort of art ed and social studies faculty, and then we went out and found interdisciplinary teacher teams here in Tallahassee to kind of co-design curriculum that hopefully everyone will be able to co-teach next year. But how they sort of have organized that collaboration is specific to each team. So that's something we'll be hearing about today. For those of you who are guests, if you just want to introduce yourself in the chat, I recognize most of you in the chat, but not everybody knows each other. So feel free to say hello. And as far as the teachers that are in the room, you'll hear from most of them today, except a few who are here but are presenting tomorrow. So it's exciting to have this time to talk about curriculum with everybody. I know that the order, Steph, are you okay with starting us since you're the first in my description? And then we'll do, okay, so we'll start with Springwood and then we'll do Fairview and then we'll do FSUS. Okay, awesome. All right, we're going to take about 20 minutes for each presentation. So if we're getting close to time, I'll let y'all know, okay? And then at the end, after the three presentations, that's when we'll have time. We've saved a lot of time for Q&A at the end. Okay. Thanks, all. Steph, why don't you take it away?
Cool. All right. I am going to be figuring out how to share my screen for the first time, so please bear with me.
If you feel a little stuck and you want to share a link with me, I don't mind sharing the screen on my end. Looks perfect.
Can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What about now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. It was saying I was muted. Well, hi everyone. I'm Steph Prieto. I teach kindergarten through 5th grade art at Springwood Elementary. And I'm going to be presenting on behalf of myself and my teammate, Mary Morgan Winsett, who was unable to make it today. So some of our presentation that you see today is going to be pre-recorded from her, and I will be guiding us through all of it. And our project is called Exploring Springwood's Past, Present, and Future and Collaborating to Create Our Dream Springwood. A little bit about our project is Mary Morgan teaches social studies here at Springwood. So she sees only 5th grade. She sees all of our 5th grade students because our 5th grade is departmentalized. So she teaches social studies and science to our 5th graders, and I teach art to everyone in the whole school. So when we collaborated on this project, we decided that we were going to hone in on our 5th graders since they are our graduating class every year. And yeah, our curriculum is going to be based around Springwood. But if anybody ever wants to use this curriculum in their own schools, you can replace Springwood with the name of your school, and it can one size fits all for the most part. All Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play Mary's tidbit.
Hello, everyone. This is Mary Morgan here. This has been an amazing project to work on with Steph. Merging art and civics
Steph,
together.
mute your like volume on your computer or the audio on your Zoom call because it's
Yeah, we're getting some like double feedback, like we're hearing the audio twice.
try muting your Zoom audio and then playing it. There you go. Yeah, now play it and see if that works.
Hello, everyone.
How about now? Does that work?
I think so.
Much better. Yeah.
This is Mary Morgan here. This has been an amazing project to work on with Steph. Merging art and civics together has been something that I have wanted to do for a very long time, and this project has been possible, been possible. And our project is exploring Springwood's past, present, and future, and our dream at Springwood. So the curriculum scope, we really had a hard time narrowing down to one thing because we really wanted to hit a ton of different things because we both love teaching. And so it was hard to, try to figure out one thing we wanted to do. But we are going to use fifth grade students. And that is simply because I teach fifth grade. And then Steph sees everybody. So we decided just to start with the fifth graders and then kind of go from there. And the reason we wanted fifth grade was just because I teach fifth grade, and then we could kind of trickle down to fourth grade, third grade, so on and so forth. And we would be using art class as well as the social studies classes. And we thought it would be a fun idea to maybe do a club. And that was just simply because there is so much going on with testing and all the other things that go on, in a normal school day, that an extracurricular club would be super fun. And we'd be able to get all of the things done that we wanted to do in a club. It would be the project span would be a semester or maybe even longer, just depending on, how excited the kids were, because you never want to run something into the ground. And I've noticed, some things teachers are super excited about, but the kids don't get as excited about. And so we would definitely take this and, start with a semester, see how the kids liked it, and do this for a semester, and then maybe revamp it, and then do it, for longer if they enjoyed it. And the aim for the students would definitely be able to analyze their experiences as members of their community, whether that be school community, as well as, their neighborhood community, all the things. And then also how they could positively change their school. That's culturally, socially, and that would be through art. And Steph will kind of get into that later, but there are so many cool things that you can do with art, as you all know. But art really is a cool way to express yourself. And a lot of these kids don't know how to express themselves in a positive way. And art is just such a cool way to really express yourself. So, yeah.
Steph, if this is your part. Okay, just saw you unmuted. Okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry, gonna have to switch back and forth a little bit. So for our essential questions for this curriculum, the main ones, although we feel like there will probably be a lot of different questions that are being explored, the main ones that we want to include are: what does it mean to be part of a community? What role do you play in creating your community? What would your dream Springwood look like or feel like? And how can we use art to create change within the school? Because this curriculum is designed to span a semester or longer, we see it as having, hold on.
We can't hear it, so.
We could hear it and then it. we
So
lost
sorry.
it. No problem.
Okay. Let me try that again. Because this curriculum is designed to span a semester or longer, we see it as having 3 distinct phases. So to quickly go over those 3 phases, the first one is exploring past, present, and future. And in this phase, students would be analyzing and discussing their experiences as students at their school, gathering information about others' experiences as students by interviewing former Springwood students, as well as interviewing former faculty and staff or current faculty and staff that have been at the school for a long time. There is also the option of students interviewing or shadowing students at other elementary schools in their city so that they can compare and contrast their experiences as students and really reflect on, you know, how they feel coming to school, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what their school looks like, what their experiences and their daily schedule is like. And then hopefully in that process, starting to pinpoint where are the areas that need change. And then moving into the second phase of the curriculum, this is where students would be looking at how art can be used to enact positive change. So they would get to look at examples of ways that both contemporary artists and children are using art to improve their communities, whether it be through art activism or other methods. And then going into the last phase of the curriculum, this is where students get to decide on and collaborate on an arts integrated project that would contribute towards their dream Springwood. And the overarching goal of all 3 phases would be that students can graduate with a newfound sense of community, have pride for their school, and hopefully be motivated to enact positive change in other areas of their lives.
So civic learning, students will compare and contrast their findings, discuss their own experiences attending school. So we're encouraging civic skill, critical thinking, expressing one's opinion, active listening, identifying public problems. That was a big one, especially because I want the kids to be able to express their opinion in a positive way. And identifying public problems in a positive way. There's definitely a way to go about things in a positive manner, and you get a lot further if you come off in a respectful way. And then highlighting and modeling civic disposition, a sense of belonging to a group. That, like, oh my gosh, to belong to something, even if it's like quote unquote an outside group, like the sense of belonging to something, whether it be the football team or the art team or the drama squad team. I don't know why I said squad, but whatever. Just belonging somewhere. That is definitely something that a big thing that Steph, I know, and we both definitely felt like this was something that we wanted to teach them. and then desire for community involvement. The more that they are involved, the more that they can also see, things that are going on, and how can they change it, and the positive ways that they can change it. And then fostering dialogue and building community. The more that they are involved in their community, the more that they can see things going on. And then in social studies, students will be given a task to interview a former Springwood student or veteran Springwood teacher. And then they can spend some time coming up with interview questions. So those interview questions, they're not just going to be off the wall questions. We're definitely going to help them, foster those questions, but they're also going to be provided, their own question, or they're going to be provided with their own sense of urgency. Like they can come up with their own questions, and you're going to be able to hear their own voice in them. And then they're going to bring back their data to social studies class, which is my class, and discuss it in their small groups. And they're going to, come up with things like, what did they notice? What do they like about past Springwood? And then what do they wish could be different now? And that's going to be really cool to see, what was different back then compared to now. And really, the kids seeing how things have been different. It'll be interesting to see how they like it or not like it.
As I mentioned during the unit overview, phase 2 of this curriculum really focuses on students getting to explore different ways that artists and students at other schools are using art to improve their schools and improve their communities. So students would get to look at examples of artwork, watch videos of things that students and artists in other places have done, and then also hopefully get to try smaller scale versions of these projects. So for example, if students were looking at a video about a school that had students collaborate on a mural to beautify their campus, we wouldn't have our students creating an entire mural from scratch just to preview that, but rather students could, on a large sheet of poster board, get to practice what it's like to plan and execute creating a large format artwork. And then by practicing that and getting to test that out, students could have that in their back pocket for when they go to decide on their legacy project, whether that be something that they want to do. Same thing with the Community Circle project, which is referenced on here. This is a project that was started by an art educator in 2019 and has since been used by teachers across the country, many different grade levels. I have my 5th graders do this project. And it is an example of a way that students can share positive messages with their community. And again, this is something that can be done small scale. This wouldn't take an entire week or an entire month. This is something that could be accomplished in one class period, so that students get to experience what it's like to do this kind of project before they decide on what they want to do as their legacy project. As I mentioned earlier, one of the essential questions that students would be exploring in this curriculum include what does your dream Springwood look like and feel like? So in order to better visualize that, in art class, students could work in small groups to collaborate on a vision board that depicts their dream Springwood. And for anyone who does not know what a vision board is, it is a collage. It can feature pictures or words, and it is used essentially as a visual manifestation for your goals. And so by doing this, students could take imagery and words that both show and describe what their dream school would look like, and then they could take these collages with them back to social studies class, present their artworks, pinpoint similarities amongst them, and then at that point be introduced to the idea of their own art and civics legacy project, something that they can leave behind when they graduate, and hopefully use their vision boards as a sort of guide or jumping off point for what that legacy project could be. Some questions that can better guide this aspect are: what does Springwood need? What could improve it? Is it positive words? Is it benches? Does it need to be more inviting? Does it need to be cleaner? Those kinds of things can get students thinking about what areas of their school they themselves could improve. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Excellent. I'll leave myself unmuted because I believe that is all that is pre-recorded. So there shouldn't be any more back and forth going on. But just to sum up what's already been said, the area that really focuses on the student inquiry is getting students to decide what their final project as fifth graders is going to be and what they're going to leave behind. And so that we hope throughout the process of doing this curriculum, students will be able to practice having, respectful discussions with each other, getting to identify problems in their community, specifically their school community, and then figuring out how they can use art to create change in one of those areas. And then hopefully after graduating as fifth graders at Springwood and having this experience, they can move forward and be motivated to enact change in other areas of their lives, whether that be in their neighborhoods, in middle school, or beyond. And our last couple of slides that I have to share with you guys, these are more so the logistics of this project. We know for ourselves as teachers and accountability, it's important to, document the evidence of learning that's going on. And then of course for our admin, typically when we're teaching, we're expected to assess our students and actually give them a grade for what they're doing. And so we see the assessment part of this project consisting of the interviews that they do, the discussions that they have, as well as the preview projects that they do in art class. And then at the very end of the curriculum, we would have students do an artist statement for their legacy project, as well as an exit survey for how they felt doing the curriculum. And then hopefully that feedback would help us kind of tinker with what went well with the curriculum, what didn't, what we could change, so that we could hopefully continue to do this project with fifth graders down the line. And yeah, that is our curriculum.
Thanks, Steph. I was looking for the applause emoji, but my reactions aren't that fast. Here we go. Thank you so much for sharing this legacy project and for recording Mary's part. I knew she had a conflict with the schedule, and thanks everyone for bringing your reactions into the Zoom room. I would love to kind of dive into this and have conversation, but we're just going to go through the presentations because our goal is to maybe have conversation across presentations as well. So we're going to do the team from Fairview Middle School next. Benita and Janine, are you guys ready to present?
Yes, we are.
Make sure to introduce yourselves. I haven't introduced either of you.
I'm sorry. Okay. Let me just make sure. Miss Lyons, you got our presentation.
You want me to share the screen? Let's see.
Yeah. I'm gonna introduce us and then I'll do the intro. And then we're gonna be tag teaming.
All right, I got you.
All right. Well, hello. We are the team from Fairview Middle School. I am Janine Falah, and I'll let Miss Lyons introduce herself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Benita Brown Lyons, and I'm camera shy. So I try to stay behind it. but I'm the school media specialist, and I kind of help out with all of the different core curriculums.
Yes, yes. And I am an art teacher at Fairview Middle School. And this project was actually kind of right up our alley, especially with working with our students since we have middle schoolers. Civics, it seems to be like one of those subjects where our kids are like, oh, it's boring. They don't want to talk about it. They don't understand the importance of it. And so with this one, we made it a little more close to home because we're talking more local things and community and understanding where we are, even where the school is, and the things that come in with Tallahassee and the school, which is actually community. So this is something beautiful. Ms. Lyons is like a wealth of knowledge. She's a wealth of knowledge, whole bunch of information, things that I didn't even know. And she was really great about trying to show me how I can use the art part of our stuff with the information and what she's going to give to our kids. So I'm gonna let her start, and then, like I said, we're gonna tag team. We're gonna jump back and forth with about our presentation.
All right, we kind of went along. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We kind of went along with the worksheets that were given to us. We didn't do a cutesy PowerPoint presentation, but I'll be ready next time. But anyway, we just wanted to talk about the basic research with our sixth graders is what we're going to start out with. And we went with the essential questions, how to do research about your community and why is art meaningful and how the two can be tied together. The learning community, to motivate students about art and learning about the community hand in hand is the essential questions that we have. We also wanted to talk about how the project can work across several different curriculums. Several different curriculums. And we also wanted to go over the local components of the unit. So as we go down, you can see that we used the basic map that was given to us in the worksheet. And we walked through the scope and sequence. Well, the scope of it is to work with two classes combining together. Because Ms. Fala is such a wonderful, wonderful art teacher that works closely with her teachers in reading and math, whatever it is. She has the hand in making sure we bridge the gap and keep art in all of our curricular areas. So one of the things that we chose to do, of course, was the comic graphic novels. And it was a chance for us to share our school's history, starting there here at home and then branching out to show historic sites that branched out from Fairview itself. So one of the civics things that we're going to talk about is fostering the civic dialogue, understanding what eminent domain means, why we have to pay taxes, what is a good citizen. And we wanted to talk about how encourage the students to participate in open discussion and expressing the then and the now as it pertains to civics. What things have changed in the past, how they changed, and how we were affected by the change. She will bring in the art components, which will be the comics and mapping and murals, of three things that we want to demonstrate using art as well to share our history. Let's see if I can get to the next page. I didn't want to waste too much time talking about the resources because they're the basic things that you need for a classroom lesson. But basically, we just needed a lot of foundation resources, printed and non-printed. And we were going to go on a couple of trips to gather information for our research projects. But they also were going to take a moment to review the historic graphic novels that I have acquired in the Media Center for them to see how history can easily and quickly be taught through a strong foundational base and through art, because sometimes a picture can say it quicker than any piece of written literature that we have. Sometimes the kids who are reluctant readers will be drawn in by the artwork.
I'm sorry. I was gonna jump in right quick because that was one of our really big topics with when we was bringing in the art component. We're talking about with as far as graphic novels, bringing children in that when we got heavy content and figuring out a way for them to learn the information without it being so overwhelming. And we took the book approach, which it's like, okay, it's like a comic book illustration approach to help them not only understand the information, but they have a visual to go along with it because it is historic. And with us, like, yes, we still need pictures when we're even reading through history books. So with students, when they're trying to understand, like, I feel like civics might be a heavier concept to understand because it's not just history, it's community and how does it relate, and they can't it's hard for them to make connections because it is a lot of things at one time. So one of the things as far as introduction, I know Ms. Lyons was going to start off with the research component where she's just going to show them how to research. So we'll have like smaller things that they can research and learn what are aspects of research and what's effective, not just looking at words, how effective in research. And so with that, with the beginning part, I was going to start off with bookmaking because bookmaking kind of leads us into doing the comic strip and the graphic novel. And it has you a better understanding how to put information and visuals together so that you understand how the story is supposed to go and using real information. So using real information is a little different because with most students, they're used to looking at the visual, then adding the information, but we're asking them to give us the information and you come up with visuals from that. So if they can kind of see it in like real form, like looking at books, how they have it's real information, like the graphic novels, and then how they interpret that information into a visual. So I think the closeness they have to the information as far as like Tallahassee and learning about it, then I have a better understanding of how civics is actually very important because I think it seems so far away from them because they're like, oh, it's government, oh, it's this, but they don't understand that local government is just as important as, the U.S. government or what the things that are going on in the community are just like that's civics. It's like those things are closer than they think. So I was working with her. I was talking about I found this artist because we went to our session, and I think we'll start off with this artist before we even jump straight to the computer as far as doing the graphic novels because I like bookmaking and I like hands-on activities, and they get to have actual information. Like they get to read, newspapers, actual touch things, and put things together. So as long as you can scroll up some.
Okay. All right. You want me to take this one? Well, you're still the one on you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a big person. I love content. I think more content makes better artwork for anything. Because if you know more about what you're creating or what the audience you're looking at and the things that you're talking about, I feel like your artwork is better because you take a whole different approach to it. So we want the artwork to be meaningful, but we want it not just to be meaningful like to us. I want it to be meaningful to them to create it, not just like for the process. I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm sorry, I chimed in. Historically correct.
Yes. Because it makes them actually want to do more research outside of working with our project. So that makes them want to dive into more aspects of how can I convey other topics that are in government or in our community in an artistic way to effectively, get through other people. Right.
Next.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So now when we get into the piece, you want me to take this or you going to keep going?
You can say.
All right. So once we get into the piece of studying and understanding what is valid and information that they can use, we're going to try to make sure that they gather as much information from different sources like Florida Memory, with the library downtown. I shared some of that with Janine, and she, didn't know that it was so much stuff tied to Fairview or different historic sites in Florida from this small site that is kind of like a well-kept gym down in the center of Tallahassee. But the other part of it is making sure that they understand that it has to you got to draw the reader in. And that's where her part is really essential to them understanding the importance of civics in the sense of why did we do the bus boycott? You understand, sometimes we hear about things in history, but we don't understand the foundation of it. Why eminent domain was a valid point to where we have some of the resources like the Civic Center or Cascade, even if you want to branch out to that, because it was taken from for eminent domain for a greater cause for the city as a whole, and why that is important, and why we have to understand how different things are obtained. So we're hoping that the field trip will help them get a visual of where we're going with these different things. And then we want it to be something that is student-led. So we're going to give them a couple of examples to go by, but we want them to go out and do some research about Tallahassee and the South Side in particular. And one of the reasons why is because once we start branching out and I share some of the historic sites with them, they'll be able to develop which ones appeal to them. So I want them to be able to go in and have the mindset of what research is strong, how they're going to, what resources they're going to keep and get rid of, and how it will be applied to their project. So some of the students will come up with lessons about people. Others will do historic sites in the city. And as we come through, it's going to have to kind of bring them closer together to work in small groups. So every group has an assignment. Somebody in that group may not be as strong as the other when it comes to artwork, but they got to understand that they got to work together in order for the project to be successful. All right, let's see if I can get to the next one. They're going to talk about different types of curriculum in the sense of how they're going to use the technology with their research, applying the art applications that are being taught by Mrs. Fala, and how I will teach them the technical terms in order to doing the research that they need to do. So to show through their work, their final project. There is also one of the things that we were trying to make sure that they understood that civics and art education is aimed to promote a stronger democracy. We got to find a way to bring everybody together and understand, although we all come from different backgrounds, different interests, we're looking for the success as a whole, how we all can work in this world together and become a better community, and what a good citizen is, and what is their role in that. Now we do have a link at the bottom. Civics for Life is where we went out and did a lot of our research with, and it really was very helpful in providing us with a clear depiction of making sure that they understand the power of their decisions as students, and how this decision, for instance, having pharmacies on the South Side. I don't know if anybody is aware of it. One of the things is why we had schools that were only geared for African Americans and communities that are clustered together in that way. But here we are in the South Side without a pharmacy today, where we had plenty back in the day. Are we moving forward or are we moving better? What decision, how do you feel about it? I want the kids to be able to voice their opinion and to see how, if we don't do better in history, history will repeat itself.
And also with that, learning how to convey like messages through understanding like information. I think I explained, I was talking to Ms. Lyons. I was talking with a parent, and she works for like the museum, Capital City Museum, and she was sending me a lot of information about Tallahassee in itself, like things. I mean, grew up here my whole life that I didn't even know. And I was telling her, I said, it's interesting because I've been reading the graphic novels myself, trying to get, familiar with it. And I was telling her I was reading The Great Chicago Fire. And I was like, oh, I heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it. And then I told her, as I was talking to the program director for like the Florida Museum and stuff, she was telling me that there was a Tallahassee fire. So now I got a comparison, and this just is me researching different parts of it and reading and understanding. And the graphic novel actually helped me understand more about the fire than reading a whole long paragraph about it. And so with that, if the students are making and learning at the same time, they'll be able to maybe teach or talk to other people about the same thing, not just their experiences, but then they kind of start making their own inferences about what's going on. And like me just comparing, oh, it's the Tallahassee fire as well. How did that fire start? And we want the students to start asking us questions as well, because I'm always talking to them about how art, it has messages. So we might start with the graphic novel, but it could span into other things, especially within the community where it's, okay, well, we wrote a story, we wrote a visual to go along with the content and the information. Okay, what else can we do in our community to let people know about what's going on, and how can we connect with each other? How can we learn more about what was going on? How can we make different decisions? And I think it'll foster more, when it comes to civics, it'll just say, oh, civics is not as boring as I thought it was. It has more reflection, or it has more, it's like, it's closer than I think. It affects me every day, and I just didn't realize it. And with us coming together, kind of pulling content and visuals together, I think it will spark something different, because we really wanted to start getting students, like they're leading it. Like afterwards, maybe you come up with the topic that we should explore. And for the next class below you, like when we bring it in again, because it's something we want to do throughout the school year. It's not one year. We want to kind of maybe incorporate it as a lesson throughout every year, because we get new kids. And then I think Miss Lyons and I were talking about, well, she had a great idea about a progression. So she was talking about 6th grade and then 7th grade and then 8th grade, and they learning about different stuff. But if they start in 6th grade, when we get to the other progressions, the research part, we won't have to do that as much. They'll still have to research, but it won't be like, okay, we're showing you how to research again. It'll be more, oh, let me take these skills I learned last year and apply it this year. And then they can even apply in civics, in 7th grade as well, because they do take that. All right. Sorry, Ms. Lyons, I jumped in.
Perfect. These are some of the resources that we're going to use. One of the main resources for me, just because I've worked closely with them over the years, is the Riley House. In the Riley House in the Florida Memories section, both have a strong foundation in Tallahassee of visuals that we can use within our own, and the kids just will have to recreate it in their own way. We moved into the how art enhanced student learning or civic competency. And one of the things is, one of the teachers asked me last year, why did I have so many graphic novels that tied to just history instead of the series that a lot of the kids like to read? It's because we did have our population, a large population that were challenged readers. They were reluctant to pick up a book, but I can get them to read a graphic novel that gave them the foundation that they need. So when they go back to the classroom and the teacher's talking about them, they're not oblivious to what's going on. And so this resource I found out to be very helpful with sharing historic moments. And I think if the kids have a good foundation of what they're learning and they know how to work together on this in novels, so we're going to definitely share those books with them prior to them starting to actually work on their own so they can see the historic vision that we're having through art. You want to say anything else about graphic novels?
Yes, I'm gonna see if I can share my screen so I can just show at least
Stop,
some of the things.
I'm gonna stop and let you.
Okay. Hey y'all. All right. Gonna show this. Let me do this. Okay, so one of the things that I tried to do was run I guess run a test run of how this will possibly work with some of my students. So this is a graphic, I guess it's a graphic novel, but it's based off a story that was really written by one of the students. We did a collaboration with creative writing. So this is a story a student wrote that was published, and I had them make it into a comic. And they had to use the real information. They could take information out, but they couldn't add information. And it still had to flow along with the story. So this is like a futuristic type story about pills that help you live for a long time. but this let me know how it would kind of flow if the students were to take actual information. Of course, it'd be a little different because it's historical and it's actual information, but this is a part of it right here, and it gave them an opportunity because they didn't think they thought it was going to be very simple, and it wasn't. It did take a lot of effort because you did have to read the story and understand what you were talking about before you went and did this. So, and then I have to look at the other book we were looking at. We're looking at this book right here. New Kid, a lot of we're looking. This is a very popular graphic novel that's in the media center right now, and a lot of the students like reading. It talks about new kid in school, all that good stuff, and these are things that we were showing the kids like examples because they'll be like they're not sure how to do it right away. So these are examples. And March, this is the other book that one of our research mates and would graciously let us hold. And let us hold and borrow, and so we could look through it. And it's a wonderful book. And I like the way it looks, and it will help students understand what we're looking for. Because once you start showing them examples, then they start getting their own ideas. Like, can I do this and can I do that? And that's where I want it. Like, yeah, you might. And I'm going to stop sharing for a hot second. Then I'm going to grab my graphic novels that are right behind. All right. So this is a graphic. Yeah, I was like, oh, graphic. This is actually the book I was reading. And it has a lot of information. I'm not going to go through it. I'm just showing you. So this is what we would show them. So they'll have an understanding of what we're looking for. And seeing the different types of illustrations and drawings, I think will help them understand that it doesn't have to look a specific way. It's just we want them to be able to convey information and be able to talk about it in a smart way, like you actually know what you're talking about. So that's kind of where I am right now. I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
So, and I think
you want me to pick back up?
I'm not sure. I think we're doing it. I don't know with the time. Are we okay?
I think we're there. Are we? It's only a few more slides. Let's get those last two, and then that way I can stop. So if I'm in the right place. All right, here I go. Okay. So when we get into it, we set different things to encourage them to read, setting realistic goals. The student would have to actually proper planning prevents poor performance is what I tell them all the time. So I want them to make sure that they got all the facts, all the research down packed. So they got the right documentation, and I tell them they have to verify everything. So I don't want you to put anything in here that people can't go back and verify. Make sure that they are sharing their moral voices on this, how they feel about it. We want to get them to understand the struggles and the responsibilities and some of the things that happen for Fairview, and as we branch out into the community, and how one person can make such a big difference, and how yesterday and today still are dealing with some of the same problems but different ways. So the evidence of gathering information for this unit is something that I really wanted them to get, that it has to be factual. It has to be something that you can see clearly in a visual piece, which is where Mrs. Fala really helps me a lot with it. And then how can we engage the community in making this better? And other than that, I think I got the last slide just then. So I think that's a wrap for me. You got anything else, Fala? Hello?
I'm sorry,
Hello?
someone's at my door. I'm so sorry. No, I think that's gonna wrap it up.
Any questions?
Thanks all. We're gonna do questions at the end. So we're gonna listen to the FSUS team. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking more about this, and there's so many components in it that I'm excited to chat about it. So we're gonna breeze right through. So Shannon and Michelle, are you guys all set?
Yes. Give me 1 second. I'll pull up the screen.
Sure.
Maybe. Can you all see it? There we go.
I can,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
So Michelle and I are going to pair off, and I've got my notes in front of me. So ours is called A Response to Civic Propaganda, Art, and Photography. And
Do you
Michelle,
mind just
Oh, go
introduce?
ahead.
Yeah, just don't forget
Oh,
to
that's
introduce
right.
yourselves, because we skipped that part at the beginning.
I'm Shannon Axtell. I'm an English teacher at Florida State University Schools. I teach pretty much 9 through 12.
I'm Michelle Hartsfield. I teach computer graphics at Florida High. I teach 8 through 12.
Yes. Okay. So our scope, because this is kind of interesting because we've had elementary, middle, and high school. So the scope of our project is more of the high school component. So we're going to team teach it if possible. That's kind of our goal. I have English seniors mostly, and then she's got digital arts classes, but we'll have a range of like probably 10 through 12. And our time frame is probably about 3 to 4 weeks. And we plan on kind of combining classes or swapping classes for at least a couple periods. It'll all depend on our schedule and what it looks like. And then what we plan on doing is kind of breaking it up into chunks. So I'll do a little bit of the research component while Michelle does the art, like methods of art. And then basically anything else would kind of be taught together. That's kind of the scope on that one. Michelle, let me know if I miss anything or if I'm going too fast.
Okay. I'm also trying to switch from my phone to my computer.
Okay.
So,
You've got the next one.
okay. And I've lost my, okay. So our unit is in general is broken down into 2 giant sections, and the basically research and response. And the first giant section of research will encompass the students basically choosing a photograph or a piece of propaganda that they will find while we're on our field trip, visiting, and we'll talk about that in a second too. But when they find their photograph or piece that they're going to research, then they're given prompts and instructions on how to properly research their piece so that they can in turn do the second part, which is to create a response from what they've learned about the piece, what they've thought it was and what it actually is, together combined, and then what they take away from that emotionally and personally, and show and exemplify that in a response art piece. So those are the two giant chunks of pieces of our project.
Go ahead, Hartsfield, you have this one too, I think.
Okay. And then inside of all of those 2 unit pieces, there are various things that the students will hopefully achieve, which we will teach them research tools, how to research. Shannon will spend a good bit of time on that part. And they'll learn how to use the archives databases, in-person field trips, interviews, just any way possible, any resources available to conduct the research. They will be able to discover their own emotions and reflect on the time period, hopefully being able to have the students become in touch with their feelings and emotions on what they've discovered about the piece they've researched. They'll actually have a small little unit on copywriting, because when you appropriate other art pieces into a new art piece, it's definitely thin lines to walk there. And then they'll be able to identify and use different methods, which they'll learn, and that'll be the big part that I'll handle, teaching them different art methods and method making. That's still kind of to be determined. We have some ideas, but as we get closer to the project, we'll maybe discover even more ideas of what to show them. And then they should be able to create a visual response by altering, editing, or adapting, inspired by a chosen photograph or propaganda image. So that's where they actually create their art piece. And then in a reflection piece, they'll be able to acknowledge their own emotions and what they've learned in a statement in their reflection. So those are the main goals for the project.
So before we even have them start creating, we want to model the process of how they're going to do this. So Michelle and I, you're going to see them later, but here's one of the photos we'll give them. And these are from 1960s era Tallahassee. They're taken from the Florida archives. And so what the students will do by this modeling process is, before they even pick their own, they kind of watch us, and we as a class research the time period, what was going on in the time period, what were the conflicts of the period. So if you look at this photo, it's from, I think, 1967, 1969. We had the civil rights, we had Vietnam War. And so they have to kind of look at the propaganda they choose, or this one, for example, and look at how does it persuade others? What is it trying to persuade them to do? So thinking about the purpose, the occasion, audience, and then also how the piece was created. So a lot of people, like students were, I think Michelle will show you more, we're looking at, this is a piece of plywood, but at the same time, it's placed in a spot where many people have access to it. So the modeling process is key in order to kind of teach students how to do the research and kind of let them practice it before they have their own unique and specific piece that's different from other students. Mm-hmm. And I think, is this still me? Yes. Yeah. All right. So the outcomes from the group research and what we do together is they learn probably specific research methods, but also what's a reliable source? Where are they finding these sources? Is it all online, or are they, we found a Facebook group that looks at the Tallahassee history. So that was something we can teach students. Michelle's got a good story about one of the students learning something from their grandparent. Hopefully she'll teach it.
Yeah, I'll share with that in a little while.
Mm-hmm. So finding websites, resources, and then also using the piece of art as a text. And when we say text, we mean anything that they can read or look at, like a video can be a text. So learning to analyze the propaganda, and Michelle has some questions that you'll see that she kind of asks them as they look at it. And then utilizing the research to support their analysis. So if they're like, well, it's probably from a protest method or protest, then they need to kind of research that protest or that movement that was occurring to be able to back up their analysis.
And so part of the modeling process, the research process, is to give the students prompts, questions to get them thinking, because whether the image that they're going to research is the one from the modeling or from their actual choice when they choose their piece, we want to prompt them with questions, what to think about. And a lot of it will give them the opportunity to take on the role of an art historian or archaeologist, as if they've discovered something we've never seen before from a different culture. And these questions will get them looking closer and looking for clues of what they're actually looking at, as opposed to just, well, oh, okay, I'm looking at it now and I'm not thinking much about it. That this will hopefully get them thinking. So over the course of these 3 slides, these are the questions, and I'll talk about it more in a little bit. I actually ran a small pilot lesson with some of my students, and these are the actual questions I gave them. I did slightly alter them enough so that it can be generally used for other images as well. But it gets them thinking to really look, where is the artwork placed? What do you see? What colors are used? Is there any text in the imagery? And if there is text, why do you think the artist chose to use that text? Just random, just all kinds of questions to make them really investigate and look closely at what they're looking at. Okay, so that first part was the research part of the lesson, and that's getting them kind of used to picking their propaganda piece that they're going to use, and then the next part that comes in is the actual demonstration of different types of responses. And I don't know if we've skipped it or not. We didn't skip it, but like when the students need to choose their artwork, they will be going on a field trip. Oh, and that comes next. Never mind, I'll be quiet. So the demonstration part, when they're asked to create a response of what they're looking at, they need to be shown different types of avenues of how they can create these responses. And I really appreciated what we did when we went on that field trip down to Cascade Parks, and you shared with us different ideas and methods that we could use to create a final piece. And so in that same sense, I will share with the kids different methods from collaging, different transfer methods, whether it's sublimation, because we have a sublimation printer and heat presses, or a acrylic gel transfer, any other ideas we come up with, or do they want to go the avenue of mixed media, whether it's adding on top of their transfers or if it's a collage and then they paint on top of it. Then they would also have the option to use strictly digital design, because that's the main focus of my classes. So I can imagine some of my students are going to want to work strictly with digital design. And then, of course, the digital design printing and mixed media on top of that. Once they've used the computer, they export it into printed paper or canvas and then add to it from there. And all of these things will be demonstrated to them over the course of a few days so that they can kind of choose and pick.
Michelle talked a little bit about this, and the reason why we wanted to do the demonstration before we go on the field trips is so that they kind of have an idea of the methods before they go look at these methods. So some of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to do this really jam-packed day where they go to the State Archives of Florida, and this is where we hope that they'll pick out their propaganda. We'll be in touch with them and kind of they'll have some laid out, but the students will have access to this online, some of it, and then some of it they'll be able to like actually see and possibly hold. So the State Archives will be where we spend most of our time. But then we also want to go over to the FSU Fine Arts Museum. Hang on, let me look at my notes on this one. It's not only historic, but it also asks students to look at the different art methods and mediums. And so this is where they kind of they get to see the methods they learned possibly kind of in front of them. And then last but not least is the Old Capitol Museum, because that may also have some tidbits from certain areas in Tallahassee that were controversial. The museum may offer teachable moments in the way of history and help students begin questioning their own beliefs in conjunction with that history. So this is going to be a jam-packed day, but this we feel like they can take little tiny, maybe pick their own propaganda, but also see different methods and ways people have kind of, I don't want to call art propaganda, but sometimes in a way it could be used to create movement and change like propaganda can. So one of the things we want to talk about was identifying civic skills and values. And the big thing is that students research, analyze, and create a hypothesis, but they also learn about their community in a certain time period or time frame. And they get to choose kind of which time period they want to look at. And Michelle and I talked about how they're examining history in a new way that they probably wouldn't do by themselves. They're like uncovering the unknown by being prompted to look at context that is not typical to a student, but more crucial to a historian. So they get out of the kind of typical student where we kind of give them what they should be looking at, and they get to kind of choose what aspects of history they want to focus on and what resonates with them.
So when the students are actually using art and art making, it really feels like in this project, it's multifold. They're not only are they're looking at art, they're examining art, and they're discovering it. They're looking at documentations of art forms. They're looking at different time periods, and they're using art to make sense of what they've discovered. And then when they actually start making the art, they're connecting and communicating with their past and their own emotions, and building a bridge with all of these concepts, and using art to create something tangible and relatable for them and their own personal generation, so to speak. It asks the students to reflect on the past, but also to take part in it, and in creating maybe their own, like, Shannon said, their own form of propaganda as well, making their own personal movements.
And the last one is, well, not the last slide, but the last concept, problem-based learning. So the whole thing is kind of problem-based learning, because they're like interacting with something new. By doing the research, they're kind of solving their problem in a little bit. They're looking at problematizing, if you will, and they get to step into the role of an art historian and ask questions and come up with answers. So the whole process is trying to, I don't think that's finding a solution, but finding a way to interact with it. And in that way, by doing the research and all the different components, they're able to kind of answer their own questions and find how they feel about it, but also hopefully create an interaction with the community they didn't have before. And it may lead to more exploration on their own, or sharing what they've learned with other people, which is kind of a cool concept as well. So these were the two examples. Michelle did a small scale practice project this past spring to kind of see, using kind of the model method, and kind of explore like what they would come up with just using these two photos to choose from instead of choosing their own. So in this one, she gave them these two photos. Both, I think, are from the same time period on the same coffee shop. Am I right, Michelle, on that one?
Yes, yeah.
And so students, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, basically, well, I'm kind of dumb, but that was what she was, they were allowed to choose two instead of choosing their own.
Okay, yeah, and what I ended up doing, and I can't project to show you, but they're less, so I did this small little pilot idea just to see how it would go. And I'm terrible with notes in this program.
Do you want me to go to the next one?
I think I found it. So the idea was, and I even told the students that you're going to take part in a small little pilot program, and I really made the lesson much more centralized towards what they do, which is digital design. And they were my advanced students, and they use InDesign, which is a publications program for creating desktop publishing for magazines, brochures, etc. And they had been learning that all year long. So the idea was going to be to take the lesson that Shannon and I have been working on and give them a little run through of the research part and then also their response part. Keep in mind that this all took place in the last few weeks of school, and our lovely tornadoes came right in the middle of the lesson. So it was very disjunct. Kids were absent. Things were happening, AP exams. So I did get some results, and I do want to share them. But there weren't, some of the projects weren't able to be finished because of timing, but I did get some really cool pieces. But they, just like our lesson was supposed to flow, they were given these two pieces to choose from, and then they were given those exact questions to answer the questions and prompt the students to look at those two pieces closely. And the answers were really cool. It was exactly what I was hoping for. They were noticing that it was plywood, and they were noticing that it was on the side of a building. And then after they did their own investigations and guesses as to what it was, then we talked in class together about what the pieces really were. Where were they? and we talked, I shared with them the Library of Congress, and I showed their photo archives, and I shared with them the Florida Memory Project as one of the resources. And that's where those photos came from. And we actually started talking about what was going on and the answers to what was going on civic wise at that time, once we discovered the date, 1969, they started talking about the Vietnam movement and things going on. And their answers was really engaging. Thinking about the protests that might be happening, using the words like peaceful protests, worried about war. And it was just really cool to see their answers. And then finally, and then I shared with them, okay, so your ultimate goal, because you've used InDesign, is I want you to create a 2-page spread where you show the original and you show an example, you show your response. And then you also share your answers to the questions that from when you did your analysis.
Oh, I think she froze. Okay, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, hopefully she comes back on.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you some examples from Michelle's class that like some of her kids came up with, and these are, oh, there you are. Okay, I was getting into yeah.
I'm sorry, technology. What did I leave off with? What'd y'all hear?
The 2-page spread, and then.
Oh, okay. Well, and they were certain requirements were to include their answers to their analysis. They had to come up with the headline. They had to include the original and include their response and explain their response. And that was the one new thing they had to add to their layout was explaining what their response meant and how they came up with it. And the other big thing I told them, I said, you can use the original photograph or you can not use it at all and create a brand new response. And the one on the screen now is the example I shared the class that I did. So, and this is actually a student's that she did.
Well, let me go to the students. There you go.
Yeah. So I showed some examples of 5 students, and we had already spent the year learning about headlines, hierarchy of type and emphasis, and how to get your reader to pay attention to what you're putting on the page. And so they had to incorporate all that in addition to creating their response in Photoshop. So they all used Photoshop to create their response and then put it in a layout. So it was a really fun experience. And when you do a lesson for the first time, you always get to learn the things you want to change, what you do differently. And so we did get to go through that. I was sharing with Shannon every other day, look what they did today. Look what they said today across campus. And I really enjoyed doing it and really did achieve a lot of the lesson goals that we wanted to. So it's getting us excited about them using other methods, because her students who aren't in my class aren't going to be able to work digitally. So we need to show them all, these other methods, collaging, transfers, different things like that.
And I hope you got a good glimpse of some of the art. Oh, there's another one. Hang on.
Yeah. And so some of them did use the original piece that they investigated, or they didn't at all. So, but it was fun to just dabble in it and see how it's going to kind of go.
Oh gosh.
Is it stuck?
Yeah, hang on one second. It's kind of stuck. Well, here, I'll just do this. Okay. I feel like there's more. Okay. Oh, that's the last one. So hopefully you can all still see this. You can. All right. So basically that's kind of a little bit of our project rundown.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle. You got something else?
I forgot. Yeah, the fun story about the grandma. It was really cool. So when we talked earlier on about all the various resources that we're going to expose them to, whether it's written or visual or whatever, but then we forget about the people around us. And I had one student, even though he wasn't supposed to be on his phone, he took his phone out and texted his grandmother when we were talking about the 2 pieces, and we were talking about the coffee house was a building. Can you go back to the 2 images real quick?
I don't think I can. I think I've had a computer issue, so I think I'm kind of.
Oh, okay. No worries. Well, so the original 2 black and white photographs are of 2 paintings that were put inside the wall in a niche in the wall of an old place called the Coffee House. And that Facebook group Shannon mentioned that we discovered, I went on there to ask around does anyone know what the coffee house was? Circa 1969. And no one really had any feedback. But then this one kid in class, he decided he'd take his phone out and text his grandmother. And about 5 minutes later, he raises his hand and he says, "Hey, I texted my grandma and she knows the coffee house. She used to go there." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, get your phone out again and get her to tell us what was the coffee house." And it was a great response. And she said it was an old brick building on West Tennessee Street where they would go and create art and music and share writings and read poetry and express themselves. And it sounded like exactly what you would imagine a building to have those types of images on the outside of. So we had a lot of fun exploring that and realizing that there are people like grandmas that can be resources in helping us uncover the history.
So I'm gonna have to restart my computer because it totally froze on me. I don't know, the mouse won't move. It does this every once in a while. School computers. But I'm gonna share this last one and then I'll probably like hop off and get back on.
Sure.
So the concluding and reflecting part, and we put a couple extensions. This is stuff we're not sure we're gonna have time for, or the ability to take another field trip, depending on our school and how much they'll let us do. But one thought we have is visiting to Painter Hayes, which is murals and artwork around Tallahassee, and kind of looking at some of the artwork that they have done in response to things that have happened in history or things that are happening currently. And then I also held up Nickel Boys, which is a book that kind of Colson Whitehead never came to Tallahassee, which really kind of made me upset until he came to speak at FSU. But he did do a lot of research about the civil rights movement in Tallahassee. And so while the book mostly takes place in Marianna, there are elements of Tallahassee. And when I read the book with students, they really are like, "Wait, what? What was going on?" So it's a really cool way to do. You could also probably do this before we did the project, so they kind of have a little bit more awareness of what some of the more negative aspects of history. But those are some extension ideas. So I'm gonna have to turn my computer off. Someone's gonna have to manually stop sharing for me. Hopefully you can do that.
Sure. I think I can probably
Okay, I'll be right back.
manage that. I feel like inevitably Zoom crashes in long meetings. So we're gonna just give Shannon a few minutes. She's gonna pop out and pop back in, but we still have some time left to share some conversation and ask any questions that we have of the teachers and their process. As you can kind of see from the presentations that we just listened to, these are units that are really interested in doing a couple of things, of bringing the arts into other disciplines, mostly social studies, but we also have media and language arts represented today, and thinking really carefully about how the mix of like art making and local curriculum can support civic skills and dispositions among young people. And these are the conversations we've sort of been having all year, kind of asking these questions. When is it just history? When does it become civics? What is the role of art? How are we going to teach these projects together? And so we're really interested in kind of hearing from folks today, questions you have, as we're sort of in the final run of curriculum development before these projects kind of go live in the fall. So yeah, any questions, thoughts? I see about half the people in the room are probably familiar with these projects or inside the project, and some folks are hearing about them for the first time. So we're happy to yeah, take any questions, comments, etc. Maybe not for the last team yet because Shannon's still getting in, but Lorinda, I'll read your question. I don't know if you guys caught Lorinda's introduction, but she introduced herself in the chat at the beginning of the meeting, and she's a visual arts specialist in Lincoln, Nebraska. So happy to have you here. And Lorinda asks if you guys can share, especially the collaboration of social studies and art class. Did students from both classes make art? And how did you bring students together to learn with the school schedules? Big question. This is something that's been plaguing us. I don't know if someone from each team can talk a little bit about how you guys are planning on bringing the students together. Lorinda, I'll say that the curriculum design is for next year. And so the piloting that we've heard a little bit about that happened in the spring wasn't the full-fledged sort of overlapping curriculum yet, but the teachers do have a plan for how they hope this is going to work once they get their schedules. So, Steph, if you're still here, I know that you guys mentioned this being a club. Does that mean it's going to take place outside of class time?
Yeah, so it could work either or. We came up with the club idea more recently, just because we were thinking about how this could work realistically, depending on what our classes look like next year, what our class sizes are like, what kind of obstacles come with the new school year. So it could really work either or. We could see it as working as a before school club, or an after school club. And in that case, the students would be making art in the setting of the club. If we implement it throughout the school day, it would work with students come to art once a week. Each fifth grade class comes to art once a week. And so they would be doing the art making when they come to art class. And they have social studies once a week as well. So for example, this school year, we had 3 fifth grade classes. So they had social studies once a week and art once a week. So we envision having the art making aspect going on during art class, and then the peer discussions, the interviews, the research going on during their social studies block.
Thanks,
I can
Steph.
chime in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Janine, yeah, if you guys want to, I'm just texting Shannon the question, so she's in the loop.
It's so sweet. I love it. Well, we will be working with 6th graders, but we were looking at our schedule. It'll be around the same block where we'll bring them together and we can both be in this room at the same time, and that's like ideally. So go ahead, Ms. Lyons.
Oh, I'm just listening in, but I agree. Being the school media specialist, I have a little bit more of a flexible way to work with her and push into her classroom when it's needed, and her coming over to the center for research. And the two of us working together, collaborating together.
Did Michelle already answer? Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, well, I know that we also have to wait for our schedule for next year, but the idea is I'm going to be teaching it with just my advanced kids, and Shannon's going to be working with a certain 10th grade. Is that right? I think you were going to shoot for 10th graders.
I actually have got my schedule, but it's not like specific classroom wise, but I'll have seniors next year, which is actually better because 10th grade has so much, it's like so test heavy, but with the seniors, I'll have a little bit more freedom and we could take longer if we needed to than I could with the sophomores.
Right. And then we're going to, once we know which periods our kids are in, we'll either swap classes, like I'll go to her class on days I need to, and she can go to my class on the days for research, and then, or bring everyone together in the same classroom and work as a group. So it all kind of will be hashed out better once we know which classes are which period.
Yeah, I really appreciate your question, Lorinda, because one of the challenges of doing this interdisciplinary curriculum, and a conversation we've sort of been having all year, is whether or not schools really facilitate or make possible these types of curriculum designs. And so this has really been something that the teachers have been problem solving in a lot of different contexts. And so it's something that we're really curious about. And as you can hear, not everybody has their schedules yet. And so a lot of this planning has been done for schedules that are not yet in place. So Shannon, it's kind of interesting to hear that maybe it's going to be 12th graders last minute. I wish you guys would know sooner, but I'm also really grateful for your experience and your flexibility as you guys are approaching this for next year. Yeah, that's a good question. Janine is asking the FSUS team if the folks that did the sort of pilot in the spring, are they going to be in the project next year?
The students that I saw that Michelle had probably will, well, it'll be dependent if they take Michelle's advanced class, I think, right? Is that Michelle?
well, they were already my advanced kids, and there's a handful of them that didn't graduate or are not level 4s that do have the opportunity to return. So they'll get, if they may have they may get to experience it in a small level again, but they won't. The things that'll be new for them will be the field trips, picking their own pieces. They won't be limited to what their choices are.
And as far as they may have had me as a teacher last year, but this will mostly the research component, they've learned some of it already in my class, like as 10th graders. So we might have a few repeaters, but I think we're going to have a big batch of newbies.
Yeah. At least to the lesson itself.
Yes.
They'll be newbies.
Janine, how about you? Because I know that you've highlighted the graphic novel and that students were really respectful of the amount of effort
Yeah.
that it required. Do you know if those students are coming back? It sounds like you guys want to start with 6th graders, so it sounds like it's going to be new students, but
they're not there. I won't be able to get them back in class again because they were in the photography class. So they just move on, but I can still call upon them if I need them to kind of talk to my 6th graders or kind of give them some insight on how to use the program and different understandings. But I upon them, but I don't think I'll have them in class.
And if push come to shove, then we may be able to do a lunch like art and civics thing where I can invite them into the media center
I like that.
Like go in, and they get to demonstrate and share experience with the other students. The do's and the don'ts, the wills.
I like that, and food is such a motivator. It's a nice chat. Yeah. Oh, Janine, that's nice.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I don't think this is off topic, Benita, and thank you for sharing this, but that's so exciting. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I just saw that you posted a question, Janine, but was the idea that you guys are all sort of really invested in your school communities and how that's coming out in the curriculum. And we all always heard a little bit about how that kind of invites students to become sort of really visibly present in their own communities, like reaching out to their grandmother or Steph. I know that you guys talked a lot about how Springwood has a lot of like community members who maybe went to Springwood, or like the community is kind of really strong around the school. And so something that we didn't mention at the beginning of this webinar is that part of being part of this project has brought some funding into the curriculum that the students are going to have access to, maybe resources for field trips and things like that, because FSU, the university, is kind of grant supporting the implementation next year, which is exciting. But I was just wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about how it has felt like bringing your knowledge of the community into the curriculum, if it's been sort of a new experience to have this opportunity, if it sort of highlights work that you've already done, and whether or not you've like learned about the community more through this project. I think there's a lot of different types of experiences represented across the teams today.
I'll say that I've learned more to give more, because there are a lot of things I just did not know. And I've grown up here, like I'm from Tallahassee, and just understanding more about the history kind of makes me want to dig a little bit more and find stuff out. So because I'm getting more interested, usually I'm very I'm very excitable. So like in class, if I'm like really excited, like the kids know, they're like, okay, Miss Fala. But learning more about the history of like even Fairview, because this made me question a lot. Like, hey, I don't know this about Fairview. Why would the kids be proud to be at Fairview if they don't know anything about it? And what makes Fairview so special? Like all the schools around Tallahassee have something special about them, like how they started, their origins and people that came out of the school. But the kids don't really know. So it doesn't make them dig deeper. And I think I put in the chat about the student that went and talked to their grandparent. That made a whole connection. That's gonna spawn a whole line of stuff for that student because he's gonna start exploring. Like, okay, well, what about this and what about that? And I think that's what this project is doing. It's making me learn. I'm learning more. Kind of exciting too.
Well, that's how I felt when we did our field trip, and growing up, being born here, and then we did that field trip down at Cascades and walked around, and I was slightly embarrassed that I didn't know what as much as there was to know, and so that just proves that there's so much to share with the kids.
Yeah, I was really excited, Benita, to talk to you during that field trip. And Janine introduced you during your presentation as somebody who has a lot of local knowledge, and it was exciting to be able to hear that, because I feel like a lot of the knowledge is from still, like, not everybody knows, from a community sense about where they're from. I'm definitely not from Tallahassee, so I've been learning about it more recently.
Thank you. I just wanted to share that a student and I were talking about the history of Fairview the other day, and I shared with her that Fairview is the only open concept school that still exists. And she was like, what is an open concept? Well, technically, the school started out as a hollow school with no walls. And they taught from that perspective. And actually, Fairview, if you ever been to visit Fairview, it has a vast amount of land that's on the outskirts where they had geared it to have a swimming pool, and they geared it to have golf courses and different things that was going on. It just said it changed in funding and different government law issues came up where they couldn't do it. So technically, if you go up to our track where our softball field, if they went down below, they have all the foundation of a pool. And they were like, really? It's up under here. So, it was just intriguing to her. And she didn't know that there were many other things that the school offered due to the fact that they started out as an open concept school. So that kind of thing is what excites me. And I think it excites some of the kids to know that they actually have, they can't even imagine now having a classroom without walls. 2 bells, one to start the day and one to end the day. Everything else was transitioned within the teachers synchronizing themselves. So it was just
no idea. It's so interesting. Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, when they start talking about different things, I think I love the fact that the history and the art ties itself together to bring the visual for them to see exactly how things actually happen and how laws are created and how they affect us every day. So I think that this project was eye-opening for me because, to be honest, it was liberating to me. It was uplifting because, you get in the routine of teaching and they tell us how we have to do everything. This project gives us a chance to branch out and touch something that we, like a forbidden fruit almost. But I just appreciate the fact that they tie the two together and seeing and actually going on the trips and visiting those things. It does help bring it to the student, give the students something else to look forward to other than a textbook. They're hands-on, it's touching every learning style. So I think it's a really good thing.
I would like to loop back to this idea of the research, because when you said it's kind of this new, exciting and idea generating, I think that's a connecting thread between them. But Janine, we have some Janine has some questions for you in the chat, which is sort of how the club is going to be introduced to students, and if you know yet what admin support you have for the club.
We do not know if we have any admin support for the club right now. And if we did open it to if we did do a club, we would probably open it to maybe fourth graders, but definitely fifth graders. We would try to keep it with upperclassmen. But then hopefully still introduce, the rest of the school to the fact that it exists so that it could be something that students can look forward to as they go through their schooling, knowing that when they get to be in 4th or 5th grade, this is something that they will get to work on as well.
Yeah, just to extend that question, Lorinda has asked in the chat kind of to all the teams about how this project has been sort of introduced to the admin as you guys are planning to implement next year. If or how. Janine, have you guys chatted? Oh,
Well, we haven't
okay.
spoken because we had a change in administration. So I think they'll be on board for it. I don't see them not, because we're leading it and we're kind of spearheading it and we're taking control of it. So it's not like with something we're just putting in their pockets. We're just saying, hey, this would be a benefit and this will benefit our students, and we're gonna do it. And so I think they'll be on board
Well,
with.
I spoke with Ms. Mayer about some of the
Good.
additional projects, not this one in particular, but some of the ideas that we talked about. She's open to trying so many new things to get the kids more involved in extracurricular, taking it outside of the classroom some. So I think she'll be more than happy to do this. And it's another way of just reaching our kids they tend to do pretty good in their history classes. But this way it's another way to reach kids who probably would be a little bit more reluctant to participate in history due to the high volume of reading that they would have to do, or the high volume of this project gives them a chance to participate and dig a little deeper without feeling overwhelmed. So I think she'll be open to that.
I agree.
Michelle, do you have a sense about FSUS? I know that you were planning on doing some team teaching and how that might work administratively.
I know, at least for those semantics, so if we don't require a substitute, that shouldn't affect anything. We just let everyone know where we are in case they need us. And as far as our field trips go, we'll probably need to start putting in the requests for those pretty quickly. Other than that, I don't really foresee there being any other conflicts. And the admin, love that we're doing this research. So with you guys. So
that's nice to hear. It's interesting to think about, one of the conversations, and Steph, in your presentation, Mary mentioned this, that there's a lot of something that was really attractive about the clubs was maybe getting out of some really kind of standard heavy curriculum spaces. And so I was wondering if you guys were working on the design, if you found like the flexibility you have in your curriculum in the art room really help support the project. Shannon just had to hop off. She had to childcare commitment. And so I know that she's in English and has kind of a different space, but yeah, I was just wondering if you felt like you were able to be really flexible in your curriculum as you're thinking about kind of the changes in the content you were making.
I thankfully am not micromanaged at all, really, when it comes to my curriculum by my admin. I'm not even asked to turn in lesson plans. So I get a lot of freedom, thankfully, with what I do in my class and how my students spend their class time. Mary does have like a little bit more restriction because she is tied to standards and testing and stuff like that. But if we wanted to implement this throughout the school day rather than a club, I think we'd be able to do it. Our admin would probably have no problem with it as long as, like we ask them if we plan on making any permanent installations or anything like that. I foresee them being on board, hopefully.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have more time, but I also am sympathetic to the fact that Zoom time feels longer than regular time. I don't want to tucker anyone out. So if we're okay, I think we might end a little early. Okay, I'm visualizing all the nodding that's happening in the background of this. I'll just close by saying that tomorrow we're kind of doing more of the same. We have another 3 teams presenting their work, so would encourage folks to come back. And I'm going to be posting the recording of this on our website, and so everyone who registered for the Zoom will get an update when that's live if you want to revisit this conversation. And I just really wanted to thank the teachers who presented today for sharing their work. I find it so inspiring to think about all of the really careful work that's gone into your curriculum planning and begin to see kind of the path that students are going to take into projects next year is really exciting. And so thank you all for preparing and really carefully walking us through those lesson plans today.
We
Yeah,
also
I'm
don't,
just go
we don't
ahead,
want to
Sarah.
forget that to keep an eye on your email because we'll have to schedule an interview with you all.
Yeah, I know that you guys are clocking out of the school year, but we will be contacting you through your teacher email addresses.
Or we can text. We can send like a text chain
or
in the
text.
group. That
Yeah.
might be-
Yeah, we'll follow up with you all as well.
So just talk to your groups about